Now, if you touch what you're not supposed to touch, listen, your eyes will be open, and just like their eyes are open. So, this is how it went. I was doing this morning, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do it again. But anyway, they're walking around, they're eating of the fruits. Now, isn't God fair to let you eat from 1,000 trees and not from one? He's very fair. He's very, very fair. Okay? But human beings are always want to touch the one that we can't touch. Yeah? Okay. So they're walking, they're eating, there's durians and there's rambutans and lychee and all that. So they're, skipping around. And I'm telling you, the Bible actually said already, 2:25, right? That they were naked but not ashamed. So the problem wasn't the nakedness, Now listen, So then the tempter, there must be always a tempter. Who is the tempter in your life? I don't know. But there always must be a tempter who says, hey, you can't eat this, man. Actually, he didn't say, he said you can't eat all the trees. No, not all the trees except this one. Why? Because if we touch this, we'll die. No, you won't surely die. Then, now she skips around the tree only. Now her focus on the tree only. She's not on, really? Yeah, okay. So, God knows that if you take it, your eyes will open, you will be like God. Okay? Now she looks at the tree and she goes, wow, it's good for food, pleasant to the eyes, able to make one wise. So he takes the fruit, and he goes, now, you must understand that it's never been the fruit that's wrong. It is the command of God that makes it right or wrong. The fruit itself is not wrong. So anyway, but she's okay, eat. Quite nice word. And there's probably where they start thinking, why did God say no anyway? It's a nice word. Hey, then Adam said, oh my God, hey, he said don't eat, no. Sure not. So nice, lah. Sedapnya. This is delicious. And so she said, come on. She said she gave some to Adam. Adam is going, sure not. So nice. You must try. How many of you done that before? Even when you're full, when you don't want to eat, you must try. You push to your friend. You must try. I tell you. I tell you, you eat one time, you cry. Never ate such a wonderful fruit in my life. Okay, so anyway. And so, here we go, Adam. And Adam goes, oh, okay. I think I love this. Very good. Yoda. So anyway, so he takes a bite, she took a bite, and then he just, he's probably just enjoying it for a while and goes, I wonder why God never allowed us to, And she goes, take that away. Take that away. Hideous. And then they had a name for it. Listen, they had a name for it. They called it naked. Follow me with this discussion for a while. They were naked earlier, but were not ashamed. Tell you why. Because it was not called naked. It was just called natural. What God calls natural, we call something else. Listen, friends, what are you calling what God has made? Who told you this was naked? Listen, this is okay with me. I made you this way. Before this, you were not ashamed. So listen, the problem is not the nakedness because they were already naked. The problem was that they were ashamed. They were ashamed of the way they were made. Did you catch what I'm saying? So I'm trying to bring you through thoughts. Number one, can't touch this, but you did. So your eyes is open. I said to you earlier, you bribe, your eyes will also be open. You do all those stuff that you're not supposed to touch, your eyes will be open. And then finally, you will call it something that it shouldn't be called that way, but you call it anyway. And from that calling, you will find consequences coming out of that. And the consequence that comes out of the name naked, which you never will use for a baby, and you shouldn't have used for Adam and Eve, because it was just natural. But because they used it, now comes the consequences of how you see it. And how they saw it was shame. And so it was not the nakedness, it was the shame that became the consequence. And God never intended for his people to feel ashamed. Shame doesn't come from God. Guilt doesn't come from God. God loves us, made us to be victorious, to be in love, to be fruitful and to multiply, to have great, amazing life. But the devil came in and he said that I will be wise, and the only wisdom that came forth is to say, oh, the baby is naked. And then shame came in. How does this apply? Because you're saying, oh, Pastor, this is, so many thousands of years ago, Genesis 3. Thank you for the Bible teaching. But does it apply? Oh, yes, it does. Last week, 2 weeks ago. No, in fact, 3 weeks ago, sorry. Because I was in Nilai. Driving to Nilai with this message. I love Nilai. I love cyber. I love the churches that God has planted because the people are precious. There was never a single time I've ever thought how much it cost me to get there. Never. And I'm thinking most of you would have not also thought about how much the toll costs. Most of you. And even if you thought about it, it didn't matter to you. Put it into old language, you weren't ashamed of it. And then suddenly one day you allowed your mind to be applied to that. And you begin to touch things that you shouldn't have touched. Say things you should have said. Thought things you should have thought. And ding! 4 ringgit 50 cents is a big deal. And then you start counting 2 ways, 9 ringgit. Wow, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Wow, it'd be 54. No. And then you let yourself get into it. Your eyes are now open. 54. Now, what do you call it? What do you call it? You have the creativity to call it whatever you want. But whatever you call it, comes the consequences. Because, listen, if you call it waste of money, your heart will start going the way you never wanted to. But if you call it, hey, God deserves every cent. Because his sacrifice cannot ever be compared with the sacrifices I made. He went to the cross, died for me, was whipped until they couldn't even recognize him. What is 54 ringgit? What do you call coming for second service at 4 p.m.? And so when you begin to touch that which you're not supposed to touch, and bring your heart to a place that is not healthy, what happens is that your eyes will be open. Oh yeah, nobody else comes what? If you wanted to, you will touch a fruit that you can't touch, and your eyes will be open, and you will begin to count. And then not only that, you will begin to call it. Now I'm asking you right now to call it. What do you call coming for 2 services? You call it. Because whatever you call will be the consequence. You with me, friends? And if you say, it's okay, God, it's only 2 services, man. People from China walk hours for 1 service and back. And then you begin to compare like that and say, mine is nothing. I tell you what will follow is going to be amazing. But a lot of people call it wrongly. And so that's why people say, you call it. You call it. It's your call. Call it. Call it. Second time you have to give offering today. Call it. What do you want to call it? Sacrifice? Love? God deserves it? Call it. Because once you call it, comes the consequences. But the consequences will come. And if you call it, because before that they were naked but they were not ashamed. Before that you were giving, coming, doing. Now they are ashamed. And their very shame is the one that caused them to run, hide. And I give you all the C's right now, one by one. First of all, because they called it that, the consequence was shame. And not only was it shame, it was blame. They began to look at other people That's what it does to you, friends. It does that to you. You're not looking at your own heart. You're not looking at your own life. You're not looking at your own sacrifices. You begin to blame. Why the pastor always put me, so frequently? Why this? Why, are you with me? And you see, it's not we doing it to you, no. It will be you doing it to yourself if you don't stop. You've got to come to a place whereby you say, no, hold on, I can't touch this. I can't touch this. I cannot. This is unto the Lord. I'm not doing it for X. I'm doing it unto the Lord. But if you keep on doing it, your eyes will keep on opening. And it will open to things that, hey, it's not even wisdom, It's like naked. So, and the more you touch this, the more your eyes are open to everything bad. As if making mistakes is bad. As if nakedness that God created us is bad. No. Okay? So far so good? Now, call it. So you call it consequences. Consequences is shame. It is the shame led to blame everybody else but me. True? And then the last 4 C's I give to you. This is what deteriorates. You see here, the devil says, you will not surely die. How untrue that is, because it started to happen in the very chapter itself. How? Number 1, I saw them making fig leaves for their covering. The first thing that will be tempting for you to do when you begin to call it wrongly and get into a consequence of shame, that shame will drive you what? Where? Number 1, to make your own coverings. Listen, if you for some reason don't like a leader that's above you, you will begin to, and David says, don't touch the Lord's anointed, but you will touch it. And when you touch it, your eyes will open to like, he's just a human being lah. No? Yeah, nothing lah, nothing. Oh no, what anointed lah, he needs more help lah, okay? To call it. Alright? And then you call it. This leader, not sure whether he's the right one for me. Consequence, I'm ashamed of this leader. Sometimes we don't use that kind of big words, but it's true. We look elsewhere. Yes? And what happens is, the first thing is, you make your own covering because you have just stepped out of your leader's covering. How many of you know that God is not your only covering? No. Even for a wife, the husband is her covering. Do you understand scripture? God has placed covering over us. Leaders, bosses, spiritual leaders, physical leaders, economical leaders, whatever it is, teachers in the school, parents.